Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you've had your lunch, everyone is on a good mood. We're going to go through a couple of slides really quickly, a few bullet points, what we have been doing, and we will have well time to get some questions answered as well if needed. So let's start from the first. My name is Erno Kuvaja. I'm working as a senior software engineer for Red Hat, and I have been serving as a Glance PTL for past 2 cycles and will continue the train cycle as well. So I've been working with Glance primarily full times for 5 years now since Icehouse, and I've been involved in pretty much working on the V2 API and a bunch of features like image import, multi-store, and just running a few points what we did last cycle and what we have preliminary assay plans for train cycle. And obviously the PGG is starting after this summit, so any plans what there is on the slides are just speculation so far. We will nail the details down from Thursday to Saturday. So, there we go. So first of all, we introduced the multiple backend support a couple of cycles ago as a experimental, and it was still experimental in Stein. We stumbled upon a few issues how we are dealing with the different stores being registered in the database, and we decided to take a break on that and make sure that we do it right on the first time before we claim it stable. So the plan is that the multi-store support, so that you can have multiple same storage type backends, will be stabilized for train. So that's a big topic for this cycle. On Stain, we also managed to get Glance running under Windows, which is quite surprising because we have problems running on some Linux environment and especially under MicroWhiskey. But being able to run Glance in Windows environment was actually fairly straightforward, and we got good contributions from people knowing what they're actually doing to help us out with that. And we got the promise as well that they are setting up a third-party CI for us so that the testing and the gating will be run under Windows environment as well. So that's something we would expect to be continuing in the future, and we are hoping not to break that compatibility anytime soon. Another small feature that was a lot requested is the pseudo visibility of all. So when a user is listing the images, there is lots of ways to filter that image list. But one filter what we were actually missing is how to list every single image that user has access to. And it's not a actual image visibility, so you cannot set image visibility equals all. But when you are listing image, you can use it on the filtering, and it will provide the full list. Another small thing, lots of audit work happens through the Oslo policy generator, and we got entry points on Stein, so one can actually create that uniform policy listing like from any other project with the Oslo policy generator. Now, big note there, you still need to have the policy.json config file. Glance don't have internal policies set up in a way that to get anything meaningful out of that listing, you need to have a properly configured policy.json in place. And another pointer was we have the deprecated but not to be removed locations API, and there was some use cases. For example, only way to use HTTP store in Glance is to create the image through the locations API and set the locations through that. And for a long time, users were not able to actually put the verification data, the checksums, into those images that were created through the locations API. So on StainCycle, we implemented a way to piggyback both the multi-hash and the old MD5 sums with the location update call, so that those images can be verified when they are consumed as well. Then another oopsie we had, Glance Cache Manage. We realized that it was unusable after we removed the images API version 1. So on Stein, we brought the Cache Manage back, and it's utilizing the V2 API now. So that will continue better for the future. We added description as a common image property. Really doesn't change anything how you use that. Now it's just available on the schemas, and you can see that it's supposed to be text field or string, and have a little bit description there, like everyone would assume using description for image description. But now it's more formalized that that's how we expect that property to be used. Bunch of bug fixes, especially around image import. We had quite a few minor inconveniences. We left data behind on the import staging area on certain cases where the image import failed, or when the file store was actually not enabled in the configuration, because we use the same store drivers to interface the file system locally under the tasks. And when the store was not on the enabled list, we ended up to the situation where the invocation of that store failed, and we actually couldn't delete the image data. So that got fixed. Just a note, if you have been using it, there might be some old data lingering around, so that's good to have a look and clean out. Also, we got the Python 3.7 testing working out, so all the twerks that Python 3.7 brought in got fixed on this cycle as well. And then what we are looking for train cycle. So like I mentioned at the beginning, we are definitely stabilizing the multi-store and looking into the API calls a little bit, what needs to happen to have it meaningful and useful. We are looking to improve the cache tooling. So we do understand, especially on the edge cases, and that seems to be the big hype at the moment, having Glance caching on the edge nodes, we would have actually tooling that you can point and pre-cache images on the edge side before you start starting workloads there, clean out those caches and such. At the moment, the tooling is really labor intensive and fairly confusing to use. So we are definitely looking to fix some of those. One big discussion point what we are having during this PTG Friday, Saturday is, are we going to be moving back to Python Glance client on our documentation? So there has been lots of discussion about OpenStack client and how everyone should be using it. And the reality is that the images part of OpenStack client has never been maintained by Glance team. And we gave them the preference for past, I think, couple of years at least, so that all of our documentation is actually pointing OpenStack client commands. And there has been just continuous issues brought to us over IRC and different other channels, people fighting to be able to use certain features. And unfortunately, for us, most of the time the problem has been solved by just pointing out, like, have you tried to use just the glance command instead of OpenStack command? And that's under discussion if we stop promoting OpenStack client in the documentation and just stay committed to maintain the glance client itself. And the last one is a little bit vague. So glance works as an independent API nodes. When the service is running, it has no idea nor it cares if there is multiple glance API nodes serving the clients or not, which causes problems. For example, being able to control where your pre-cache image is, or being able to do image imports where you have the data on specific node on the staging on local file system is really, really difficult when we don't have communication between the nodes. So that's something I'm trying to address on this cycle as well. And taking into account that we are kind of 2.5 full-time people working on glance, it's a lot. So if there is someone who wants to jump in, we happily take your help. Help us review code, help us write code. If you have features you really would like to see coming out of glance, really the best way to make that happen is get some contributions in and come and do that code with us. But that's pretty much where we are at the moment with glance and our path forward. I'll open at this point for any questions. Go ahead.
Instead of going back to the glance client, would it be better to spin out glance into its own OSC plugin?
So the question was that instead of going back to glance client, would it be better to spin out OSC client, OpenStack client plugin for glance? Possibly. The problem is we do not have the manpower to do that. And we have been maintaining glance client all this time as a reference client anyways. So glance client is currently on a feature par with glance API or images API. So just purely effort-wise, it's much easier for us to keep maintaining glance client than taking the workload on us and trying to make OpenStack client plugin out of it. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much for your time.